Hey YouTube, welcome. My name is Ray and I'm a licensed clinical therapist. And in today's video, we're going to be going over Socratic Questioning. Socratic Questioning is a really good worksheet for challenging those pesky, negative, unhelpful thoughts that tend to bring down our mood and impact our overall functioning. So let's jump into it. Thoughts are like a running dialogue in your brain. They come and go fast, so fast, in fact, that we rarely have the time to question them. Because our thoughts determine how we feel and how we act, it's important to challenge any thoughts that cause us harm. Spend a moment thinking about each of the following questions and record thorough responses. Elaborate and explain why or why not in your responses. Okay, so in for this example right here, we're going to use the thought of I'm a failure and we're going to base it on a scenario of not getting the job that we wanted. So in the first box, we're going to, as they stated, list our thought to be questioned, which is I'm a failure in this example. Now we go to the second box of what is this evidence for this thought and against it. So we have right here the evidence for this thought is I didn't get the job, right? Let's say we applied for a job that we really wanted and unfortunately we didn't get the job. The evidence against the thought, not getting a job does not mean I'm a failure. The company felt someone else was more qualified for the position, and that's okay. This isn't the only job. There will be more opportunities in the future. So for box number two, notice how we're kind of breaking it down of what is the evidence, what's supporting how why we're thinking the way we're thinking and the influence it's having on our emotions. And when we lay it out like this, is really giving us a bit more clarity. So now we're going to go to box number three. Am I basing this thought on facts or on feelings? Because remember, we're having the negative, unhelpful thought of I'm a failure because we didn't get the job. So, am I basing this thought on facts that we're a failure, or does it just feel like we're a failure? And remember, just because you feel doesn't mean you failed. Just because you feel does not mean you failed because life happens, right? We're entitled to feel how we feel. Our emotions are valid, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily accurate at depicting the entire situation. Thought based on feelings. I want the job because I believe I'm qualified for the position, not a failure, and I didn't get it. So, the reason why, we're breaking it down this way is so we can see for ourselves and challenge those negative, unhelpful thoughts that tend to be pesky at times because we're having this thought of I'm a failure and we're basing that off of the fact that we didn't get the job that we applied for, interviewed for, but we applied for the job for a reason. We felt that we were competent. We felt that we were qualified. And when we see it for ourselves, we're able to kind of list it out and remind ourselves of that. It tends to help. Box number four, is this thought black and white when in reality is more complicated? This situation is more complicated because other candidates interviewed for the job and only one person could get it. The person who was offered the position could have more experience than me, right? That's the thing about these type of situations. And again, in this example, we're talking about applying for a job and we didn't get the job, unfortunately. How about there was another candidate that was more qualified for the position because they have more experience and again the company just felt they were a better fit. I don't know if that necessarily deems us as a failure and the company felt that they were a better fit for the role. Could I be misinterpreting the evidence? Am I making any assumptions? I'm basing the thought of I'm a failure off the evidence of not getting the job I was interviewed for and thinking of myself as less than. I'm making assumptions about myself that I'm a failure and not good enough. There could have been a better candidate for the job I applied for. And sometimes when we don't know something, again, everyone the company is interviewing with for the position, sometimes we can let the unknown feed into the negative, unhelpful thoughts as well because we don't know is like, I don't know. So it adds more validity to the negative, unhelpful thoughts. we're experiencing, when in fact, it can go both sides. Just as we don't know, it could go in the not our favor, we don't know. So it could go in our favor. And that's for a various amount of scenarios. But for this particular one, we don't know. We don't know. So we want to be mindful about making the assumptions, especially when they tend to go against us. Might other people have different interpretations of the same situation? What are they? I made a note right here. If you find it challenging, definitely utilize our support system, whether it's friends, family, support group, anyone, right? Because sometimes it can be challenging, kind of deciphering some of this stuff for ourselves. And it's always good to get, another set of eyes, another set of ears on this situation. Someone else, the other candidates that didn't get the job. Oops, let me just add this right here. That didn't get the job may interpret the situation as a learning experience to improve for the next interview. Am I looking at all the evidence or just what supports my thought? I'm not taking all of the evidence into account. I'm focused on the fact that I didn't get the job, which decreases my mood. Keep in mind the influence of our thoughts on our mood. So, when we're in a situation and it's not great, right? We really wanted this job. We felt we were qualified for it, right? And not getting the job sucks. And it's natural to feel a sense of like, oh man, like I really wanted that job and I thought I was qualified and da 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 da. But we also want to keep in mind of what I like to call the marination of our thoughts, right? Where when something's marinating, like if a meat is marinating, it's absorbing all the sauce, all the seasoning, and it could be marinating for, hours, days, right? Now, imagine if the meat was our mind and the seasoning, the sauce was the type of thoughts we're having. So, if we're having a lot of negative, unhelpful thoughts and our mind is marinating in it, think about all the seasoning, the sauce, right? All that influence it's having on our mind because internally, our thoughts influence our mood. And that's important because our mood influences our behavior slash actions. That's everything we do or don't do. Essentially, the way we function. So we just want to be mindful of that. Could my thought be an exaggeration of what's true? Yes. My thought could be an exaggeration of what's true. I didn't achieve my goal of getting the job I applied for. The exaggeration is identifying myself as a failure because I didn't get the job. I'm still a qualified person. That's why I applied for the job. Again, sometimes we can focus on certain details or aspects of the situation and we can really let that do a number on us. We just want to be mindful of how we're feeding the negative, unhelpful thoughts. Kind of like if you ever had a cavity and you keep sucking air into it just to see if it still hurts. We did it like 5 seconds ago, but we still do it just to see if it still hurts. It almost like becomes a habit, and we're just doing it and doing it. That's what we tend to do at times with some of these thoughts, where we want to be mindful about feeding them and having them grow and grow and grow and having that negative unhelpful influence kind of spread across. Am I having this thought out of habit or do the facts support it? Habit. When things don't go my way, I tend to think less of myself and focus on the negative, unhelpful thoughts that support how I feel, like not getting the job. You know that saying, misery loves company? Emotions love company, right? When we're feeling a certain type of way, we tend to want the environment to match how we're feeling. Feeling sad, depressed, just not in the mood, right? We tend to want to be by ourselves. If we do listen to music, is music matching how we feel? And that goes across with any emotions. And on the other end, if we're feeling really happy, upbeat, right? We don't want to be, secluded within our home or wherever we're at. We want to be out and about. We want to be around people. We're more likely to be active, engaged. So again, we just want to keep that in mind where we're being mindful of what thoughts are feeding in. Did someone pass this thought slash belief to me? If so, are they a reliable source? People say a lot of things, and the people in your life. If we're receiving information, feedback, etc., from someone that's not a reliable source, I think we can kind of brush it off a bit, right? When we talk about a reliable source, A reliable source would be, our support network, right? The people that we love, our friends, our family. Is the information coming from a provider like a therapist, or is the information coming from someone that doesn't have our best interest at heart? So we just want to keep that in mind. No, no one passed this thought to me. The company did not call me a failure or speak ill about me. Is my thought a likely scenario or is it the worst case scenario? My thought of I'm a failure is the worst case scenario. My negative, unhelpful thought is feeding off the fact that I didn't get the job, which is true that we didn't get the job. However, I can challenge this thought by focusing on positive slash productive thoughts, such as reminding myself that I'm a qualified, competent individual based on my past success, such as getting a job I applied for. So, in the midst of going through what we're going through, at times we can just focus on the distressing aspect of it, but we don't necessarily account the past successes that we had of like, wait a second, if I'm a failure, how did I how did I get those previous jobs I applied for? If I'm a failure, how did I accomplish this? How did I accomplish that? How did I feel competent and qualified enough to even apply for this job? So we really just want to be able to keep those things in mind and be able to kind of recall them during those moments when we feel that those negative, unhelpful thoughts are starting to creep in. So that's it for today's video. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'm going to put a link in the description to the Socratic worksheet. I always say to my clients, practice your coping skills for at least 10 minutes a day, not an hour, not two. I mean, you can if you're really feeling it that day, but at least 10 minutes a day. So that way we stay ready to be able to utilize these healthy forms of coping. So we don't got to get ready, right? If we learn a really valuable skill, we don't want to do it, don't use it for a period of time, and then either A, forget it to use the skill, or B, when we go to use the skill, it's not as fresh. We really want to get in the coping skill practice so that way we're working out that mental muscle. So we start to be able to reframe some of these negative, unhelpful thoughts without even necessarily realizing it. We just kind of do it without the worksheet, but the worksheet is practice. So whether you do a worksheet a day, a different type of coping for 10 minutes a day, it really goes a long way. So thank you guys, and see you next video.